Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop-elect Vanessa Brown. I'm glad to be here with you on tonight. I want to shout out our Facebook Live audience, as well as our Instagram and Twitter audience. If you're with us tonight, as well as YouTube, we want you to share this conversation. This is going to be a great conversation on tonight. We want to talk about Haiti. And we want to talk about, does the United States really care about Haiti? And so just to frame something for you really quickly, and we're going to introduce our guests, and we're going to also bring to you Bishop Pearson and Bishop Flunder. But before we do that, I want you all to know that thousands of mostly Haitian migrants are were crossing the Rio Grande in the United States, and nearly 15,000 were sleeping under a highway bridge in deteriorating, unsanitary conditions. And I think that's important for me to say. Many of these migrants arriving in Del Rio, Texas, are Haitian who were fleeing corruption, disaster, and poverty in their home country. Some because of the August earthquake that devastated Haiti and the July assassination of President Jovenel. Other migrants say deteriorating social and economic conditions in South America drove them to set out again this year on a long, treacherous journey to the United States. Here is the part. On Sunday, the Biden administration began sending plane loads of migrants back to Haiti under a policy used during the Trump administration to rapidly expel migrants because of the coronavirus pandemic. I think this conversation is going to be important tonight. Let me bring to you our guest for tonight, who's going to come and help us with this conversation. He is the Reverend Dr. Willie Dwayne Francois III. He is senior pastor of the Mount Zion Baptist Church in Pleasantville, New Jersey. Reverend Dr. Willie Dwayne Francois, I would love for you to greet our audience on all social media platforms, as well as tell everyone what you are working on at this time.
Good. Thank you so much, Bishop-elect, for having me today. So excited about just being able to share this virtual space with you, even though it is another devastating day to the American promise, another devastating day to the ideals that we say we live up to, those ideals that exist on paper. But I am excited to be able to share with such great mind today. Yeah, so most of the work that I do is around faith organizing. It's around organizing faith and thought leaders of faith around issues of racial justice, primarily criminal justice abolition, but definitely how the mass incarceration intersects at racial justice, at income and economic inequality, and also the way that our public education system is actually structured as prison preparatory academies and not as spaces of learning and democratic expansion. But particularly today's issue, I've always understood America's immigration self-created crises, the crisis around immigration that our government has created. I've always understood that to be the left hand of mass incarceration. So you have mass incarceration that lives and tracks alongside mass deportation, which is what we're seeing now again at our southern border. And it is I don't hold it as a badge of honor, but I was an eyewitness to so much of that devastation that happened to those Central and Latin American migrants when I took a visit to the San Diego Tijuana border and saw these encampment grounds, saw children living in insanitary context, dehumanizing context, living under the threat of what can be called nothing else than militarized whiteness, and the kind of intimidation, the kind of fears that were being stoked and evoked in that context on the Mexico side of the border is really heartbreaking, and it is a serious wound to what America says it really is.
Thank you so much for that. So great to have you here on tonight as well to help us in this conversation. Of course, these are not guests that are coming on. They are here with us every week. We are always glad to have the great mind of Bishop Carlton D. Pearson. He's an author, progressive spiritual teacher, and thought leader. Bishop Pearson, please come and greet our audience on all social media platforms.
Thank you, Bishop-elect. We are confronted again with a major exposure of the systemic, not only systemic, but psychological or psychic racism in this country. There are millions of people who don't even realize it is their psyche, their soul is tainted with this idea of white supremacy. They would never admit that. Again, they don't recognize it. Millions do. But millions don't. And it is, again, we've used the word systemic, but we haven't used the word psychological racism, which is in the thinking of the people that we are, as I've said many times on these gatekeeper discussions, King James and King Jesus are not the same people. And the 16th century English that says, preach the gospel to the creatures is at least 400 years old. We're creatures. Save them and enslave them. It was slave trade, but it was part of preaching and reaching the gospel to creatures. So they don't feel any particular remorse. This is the most egregious offense of this country. It is what I like least about it. And even people, I'm very disappointed in President Biden's decisions, not only on Afghanistan, but you could bring 85,000 Afghans here and send 16,000 Africans, Haitians, away on planes to what? There's nothing there. They're devastated. That's not American. That's not Christian. That's not sanity. That's not humane. It is literal crimes against humanity. And we need to cry loud and spare not, lift up our voice like a trumpet in Zion. And that's what we're doing. So I look forward to us not only talking about the problems, but talking about ways we can change it and that we should. I'm already sending money and love and support of those who are already there. I have friends in Haiti. I've been there myself, preached crusades there. There are a lot of Holy Ghost filled Christians there. There are a lot, it's mostly a Catholic country, but these are people who are dear and precious and smart. And it's the first Black country, independent, that won and fought their independence from France and from the European colonizations. And so this is something that should not be looked upon smallly or ignored in any way. And we won't do that. So tonight we're gonna talk about it and talk about people and things and see what change we can make. And I know we will.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Bishop Pearson. Last but certainly not least is our presiding bishop, Bishop Yvette A. Flunder. She's our presiding prelate of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, as well as the senior pastor of City of Refuge United Church of Christ in Oakland, California. Bishop, will you come and greet our platform on tonight and also help to frame the conversation?
So good evening, everyone. What a joy to see you, Brother Willie Francois. How wonderful. And to be in the company of Bishop Carlton Pearson is always both my privilege and delight. I am so grateful tonight to be able to weigh in with my brethren and also with Bishop-elect Vanessa M. Brown to talk some about the crisis, the humanity crisis that is happening at our borders. Our borders have experienced many humanity crisis situations. But this one, I would like to lift up a couple of things. People are not coming from Haiti to the United States for a better life. They're coming to the United States for life, period. Because the situation is of such that they have had what I would call a trifecta of destruction. Just one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. One political murder, one thing that had, and two things that have to do with the crisis of our planet during this time. And if I were them, I would be looking for a way to preserve life for myself and my family in whatever way that I could. I spend a lot of time in the streets of Oakland, and particularly working with people who are housing and food insecure. And there's a certain desperation that kicks in. And we know that a part of us really is animal. There's a part that really kicks in when survival comes to the front. You look to any way that you can to find a way to survive and to help your family survive. Our folks from Haiti, many of them are right in that place and experiencing that. And so there is my grave concern about the issues that have to do with humanity. And when I see Abbott's Calvary down on the border of Texas, and what I know will be the intention of other governors in the South that intend to use this for politicizing this administration, I anticipate that all sorts of drama will happen. And yes, I am concerned with the fact that folks are being sent back on airplanes. I find it interesting that also today articles of impeachment were filed by 2 or 3 Republicans who know full well that they won't go anywhere with them, but they filed them for the 2 things that were lifted up already in this conversation, for the way in which Afghanistan came essentially to the screeching halt without some preparations made and anticipation of some degree of violence, but also to criticize Biden's reactions on the border, not because he sent people back on the planes, but because he didn't send enough people back on the planes, and that some people actually got through. Essentially, this impeachment is not for harm. It is because it wasn't enough harm. I think that it's very important for me to say that all of it has been severely politicized. What can we use for this to get Biden out? What can we use for this to keep Biden in? What can we use to extend the moratorium on evictions, which was a part of the conversation of this impeachment. What can we do to keep the moratorium on evictions? Do we save the people that need a place to live, or do we save the landlords who own the places where people live? Well, it's all political. It all depends on what club you're in. Somehow or other, beloved, I am hoping that we can get down to the question of what does God require, but that we do justly and love mercy and walk humbly before God. What does an apolitical God require that we have continually politicized over and over and over again? So I am very, very anxious about this conversation. What do we need to do, church unusual, and move away from church as usual in a time like this? God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop. I appreciate that so much. I want to shout out those who are joining us on Facebook and all the other social media platforms. You all know that I like to find out where you're from. I see people here from Ontario, California, Covington, Georgia, Chicago. Grateful to have you here. The Bay Area, Santa Clara, California, Chicago is here. Thank you, everybody who is joining in on the conversation. We ask you to continue to share from wherever you are. Let's get down to the root of what's really happening in Haiti, because I think that people forget the history of the United States of America and their culpability in what is taking place in Haiti. 1915, United States invaded Haiti. And when they invaded Haiti, Haiti had never defaulted on a loan to the French, to France, whom they owe money to, until the United States invaded Haiti. That broke their entire economic system right then. The United States of America owes Haiti something. Okay? Even if they keep it back in money, they owe Haiti something. They owed it to those who were here, who had no place to go, to allow them to stay here and not send them back to Haiti. Let's talk about the roots of colonialism that are happening, or that has happened in Haiti. Dr. Willie Francois, will you talk to us a little bit about that? You're muted.
I think that's where the conversation must start there, because most of what we see happening on our southern border, the kinds of crises that we created at our southern border, are not created just because we put children in cages, we've whipped children out of the arms of mothers as it relates to the Latin American, Central American migrants, and not even the just devastating images of seeing white men on horses whipping Black bodies. In 2021, which we could have easily, an image we could easily crop out of the antebellum period in this country. Like, that's devastating too, but we have to have some serious conversations about the history of America's foreign policy as it relates to Black nations, as it relates to non-white nations. In 1804, when Haiti won its independence through a slave revolution, it invoked serious types of fear in this country. Because there's something about Black self-determination, Black freedom, Black governance that actually scares white political structures, white political systems. That is what Haiti has meant to the Western imagination, that Black peoples, African peoples, do have the power to govern themselves, and they will do it even if it means overthrowing violently white oppressive structures. That is what Haiti means to the Western imagination, and particularly the American imagination, because it is what happens in Haiti that gives birth to the largest slave rebellion in Louisiana, in this country, and in this country. And that is what was feared, particularly in the 1800s, around what Haiti meant, that it would give enslaved Black folk in this country a different type of resolve, a different type of revolutionary imagination, a different type of awareness of what they're capable of, which would cost America so much. So that's really important. The other thing, and you named this, Bishop-elect, and I think it's really important that Haiti never defaulted on a loan before American reinvasion in 1915. But the reality is they shouldn't have been paying France back in the first place, right? They had to pay. Think of how silly this is. Haiti, which was exploited, which was colonized and enslaved, had to pay back the former slave master for winning their freedom, to the point that it cost Haiti roughly, I guess I think at the time it was about 150 million francs is what they had to pay back to France. And you know how they had to pay that back to France? They had to pay it by taking loans from France and from the United States. And so the United States is a part of the reparation process that Haiti had to owe France. And if America cannot be honest about how in its inception, because of our fear around what it represented, that we have always had Haiti running behind base because of the role we played in backing France and then taxing and overtaxing the Haitian people. I'm going to say this, and then because I definitely want to hear my two heroes talk about this. But there's also another reason why we owe reparations to Haiti. One is that for 59 years we had sanctions on Haiti. We didn't see Haiti as an America. We had sanctions on Haiti for the first 59 years of Haiti's independence. We didn't recognize Haiti as a nation for 60 years because of this fear of what an independent Black nation would mean to the Western world. Like, Haiti is the first independent Black nation in the Western world, and that's scary. But there's this little island known as Navassa, right? And on this island, this is an island that in 1957, the United States stole from Haiti. Didn't ask for it, didn't bargain for it, didn't buy it. They stole Navassa from Haiti, about 30 miles off. And what's interesting about this island is that this island had bird droppings on it, millions of pounds of bird droppings that America used to enrich its farmers. And so if we think about all that was made from that island that we stole to enrich our farmers since 1957, we still haven't given it back. Since 1957, if we calculate that, this island that we stole with bird droppings on it in order to grow our food, in order to enrich our rural areas, our agricultural industries here in this country, if we were really to atone for that, that's at least $260 billion, according to economists, on what we owe Haiti just for the bird droppings that we stole from them in the island that we stole. We owe Haiti something.
Thank you so much for that. We took their land and we took their resources. Yeah, we owe Haiti something. Bishop Flunder, Bishop Pearson.
Pastor Francois is exemplary of the energy in Haitian people, African people. We're intelligent like you are. You're just refined, of course, and educated. But the white people, our detractors, are smart in that they have organized and planned to hold us. They sit in think tanks for hours, days, weeks, and years, thinking of ways to keep us under their control. They're losing the control now, and you're seeing a public breakdown. They are publicly protesting. They know we're coming back. They thought of the bird droppings. Now, I never heard that story. You're sharing with us information that we didn't know, but you represent what is intrinsically us, the best of us, and they know you exist. They know your spirit exists. They know your mind exists, and they would destroy you if they can. And they've tried for 400 years. They've not been successful, and their time for that period is running out. What we see, the gall, just the picture of a white man on a horse with a whip, grabbing a young Black man with a package of food in his hands to feed his family. That is the most inhumane, but I'm glad the world gets to see who these people really innately are. They're not like us. We don't do that. We haven't done that, and we won't do that. And in ways where it seems like we have, they've exacerbated us as much as they can to get us to kill each other. But let me just say this, and this is really a little bit different from the subject. We're about to see the worst white-on-white crime and wars in the history of this country since the Civil War. These folks are fixing to lose it in the streets with guns and blood, and they're going to be killing each other. We're going to be at home watching them on television and making commentary like you just did. That's what we're seeing now. It's pretty incredible. There's several things going on. There's a lot of layers to this. Give us your, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuge of your teeming shores. Send these, the homeless tempest, toss to me the Statue of Liberty. It's all a lie right now. It's false piety. The words are powerful, but this country, most Americans don't even know that's on the Statue of Liberty. They don't know what it means. But all of this is happening to bring attention, re-attention, because where there's tension, there's attention and then intention. We're going to be intentional in what we do from now on. We now know, and the world is watching. It'll never be the same in this country. We will get it all back. Native Americans are coming out. The brilliance and the intelligence, the academia, the creativity, new TV programs are coming. All kinds of things are going to happen. And white racists, not all white people, but white racists are literally collapsing. It looks horrible, but the best is yet to come.
You know, European supremacy, like a wave, has washed itself over many indigenous people over the years. I was reminded when I was thinking about this earlier today that the federal government in the United States compensated the owners of enslaved people for their loss of property after the Civil War. They didn't compensate the slaves for their loss of blood, sweat, tears, and lives and work. They compensated the owners of the slaves because they lost their property. What that would suggest is that the war's intention was not really to free the slaves because the slaves would have been compensated. What they intended to do was to destroy the economy of the South so that the South could not become a competitive nation against the North. And slavery was the principal mode or way that income came to folks in the South. That explains a great deal about why slavery did not end the sorrow and sadness of African American people. It did not make us citizens in the truest sense of the word. It did not bring equality. We weren't paid back for our labor. Slavery happened again by another name, like peonage. People who had little crops and little farms in the backyard and had to pay a part of it to the person whose land it was. Essentially, people who worked on chain gangs for the prisons and the current prison industrial complex. Let's just be clear, slavery by another name, still slavery. But it is because there was never an intention to free the slaves. The intention was to break the economy of the South so that the South would not be able to leave the republic and become a republic of its own. Why am I lifting that up? I'm lifting that up because we still have not dealt with the fact that that still has not happened for Black people. And I'm not talking just about reparations, because the reparations that are owed to us for what we gave in the initial foundational realities of the United States of America would make us own the whole country. We'd own the whole ding dong thing from sea to shining sea. That's literally the truth. That is terrifying. And terrifying to the extent to which I believe what would be the underpinning of a sea of Black people. I need you to walk with me just for a minute. A sea of Black people to relocate from Haiti to the United States is not any different, beloved, than the intention essentially of reducing the population of Black people, either through prisons or violence, and increasing the population of white people because it is diminishing while we're talking. While we are talking, people, minority people will become the majority in this nation before my baby grandson is grown. And I am completely clear that that is the fear. That is the fear. And it is deep-seated why there's a different understanding for Haitian folks that cross these borders. These are not murderers. These are not rapists. These are not all of these reasons why people say that folks can't come here. It's not any of that. They are simply a group of people that have been handed incredibly hard, difficult, cruel, insane, and ungodly realities by the same Europeans that enslaved my ancestors and yours. And some of that European blood is flowing through us because they did much more than enslave them. That is our reality. I think we should take a close look at the ways in which the Civil War, what came out of the Civil War, the intention of the Civil War, what came out of the Civil War, and the way in which it belittled and diminished the rights of Black people, and that we are still in the Civil War. We have not been liberated. We were not liberated in the Civil War. The Southerners were punished because they would not stay with the Union.
And notice that this is Texas, where Juneteenth occurred. The leadership of Texas knew we'd been freed. That same deadly negative energy is prevailing in that state with a governor that's trying to run for president, the most arrogant and ignorant man I've ever seen in leadership, one of the most, including DeSantis in Florida. And I'm just calling a spade a spade. They think they're going to win, and they're won a few of the battles, but they will not win the war because God itself, the universe, has made its mind up to do some cleansing and clearing. This is being exposed to us so we can know that it still lives within the culture. I put that picture of the man on the horse on my site because I wanted to show again that is still here. 100 years ago, right here in the city of Tulsa, that same deadly negative energy burnt down 40 blocks of property that another small Haiti, you could say, was North Tulsa. I'm up there constantly talking with people every day. We're restoring that place. I don't anticipate reparations. Blacks will come in. We're going to come in there and repair it ourselves. We're not going to wait for the white man and beg him because the same energy that built it can rebuild it. We didn't use white folks to do it in the first place, and we're not going to use white folks. We're not going to need them. We can use them, but we're not going to need them. So we have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. It's important, and you brought it out, Pastor Francois, that the Haitians are freed slaves. That's why that country exists. That, as you alluded to, Bishop Flunder, is the most intimidating thing. Bishop Brown, you brought that out earlier, way back in 1915, but in the 1800s. They are afraid of what they know we can do it. Now they're afraid that we will do it. And they have that's not an unfounded fear because we will. We're not going to hurt anybody. We're going to be ourselves, expand. We're the first people on the planet. Africans are the first people on the planet. We're the first builders of civilizations. We were the first people with the advanced intelligences. They hide that. Many people for many years didn't know that the African continent in the earlier maps was as large as it is. They made it look smaller because they're intimidated by our bigness. That's a spirit. So we're gonna come through it. But I think what's being exposed is ordained to be exposed. So as I've said many times, we will ultimately expel it, and that's what's happening.
Thank you, Bishop. I want to. First of all, let our Facebook audience know, as well as all of the social media platforms that we're on, this conversation is very important. If you have not seen the photos I admonish you to go on your Google or somewhere and
Just look at them.
look at the photos. Look at the photos of the children who are being carried across by their parents, who have terror in their face and in their eyes. I'm talking about babies being held by their fathers and their mothers to cross water, terrorized. This is what we're doing to children. This is trauma. This is how children have trauma and can pass it on. And this is how we got trauma as Black people. And so now we're creating more trauma for children. I want us to make sure we put an eye towards that. And Sarah Menard, I want to thank you for being on with us. She's of Haitian descent. And I want to make sure that we get this question. It says, how can the Black church build strategic relationships with the Black church of the Haitian diaspora to mobilize and organize our communities towards faith, social justice, and liberation? It's such a brilliant question, Sarah. I'm going to start with Dr. Willie Francois.
Well, I think one, it has to be to be honest, that the conscience of this nation has always been in Black faith communities. In a very real sense, what has kept this nation from its own utter destruction has been Black churches. Whether we're talking about what was happening in the brush harbors, when our ancestors got up in the middle of the night in order to worship outside the gaze of the plantation class, or if we're talking about what happened in the civil rights movement that gave greater expression to what America can be. Based on the passage of the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, and the Fair Housing Act. All of that are like all of those monumental gains are the work of the Black church. Those policy wins are Black church wins, and the country just needs to be honest about that. And not because Dr. Martin Luther King asked for them, but because Black women and young Black folk got in the streets, jammed up jails, and did that. So what I also love that's brilliant about the question is that it honors the fact that there is something about the Black church that stands as a moral conscience, that stands as something, as Black churches, as something that is unique that is unique for this country and has been unique in making this country be closer to what it says it is on paper. That also said, Black churches also have significant amounts of wealth that we don't often think about having. So we do have particular resources that we can share in Haiti. One of my concerns is how Black church folk can sometimes adopt savior complexes when it comes to the people we want to say are over there, right? So part of what we have to do has to be a serious level of solidarity that, one, we don't see our Haitian sisters and brothers as people who are over there. But we really develop the kind of prophetic neighborliness, right? That we begin to see ourselves as stitched together in a single garment of destiny. That what is happening in Haiti is directly killing us here as well. It is killing them more directly, but it is killing humanity itself. And we have to see how that harms us. So there has to be a kind of attitudinal adjustment in how we understand the rest of the African diaspora, in terms of how we understand our sisters and brothers in Haiti as not as people over there who are waiting for us to come and save them, but these are our brothers and sisters, and our survivals are caught up with one another. If we're going to send resources over there, we cannot do like so many of the missionary organizations that I know, and that is they drop money into foreign spaces and then they micromanage where that money goes. That we have to actually empower Haitian leadership on the ground. And that alleviates these arguments that we like to have, like, oh, but the country has instability. No, the government there has instability. The country is full of freedom-loving people who love their faith traditions, who love their gods, who love their families, right? We need to find ways to invest in real people on the ground and not allow our perceptions of political corruption to be the only way we understand Haitian leadership. The real leaders of Haiti are the people we don't know. right? The names we don't know. And so we have to find ways to invest in people who are on the ground and let them direct where the resources go. Let them determine what needs to be rebuilt and what needs to be invested in. The American messianic complex sometimes lives in us when we're doing good for them over there. And we have to find ways to trust impact. We can't say, believe Black people, trust Black people, follow Black people, invest in Black people in this country, if we are not willing to do the same for other Black people in other countries and actually allow them to live out the fullness of their autonomy, the fullness of their freedom, the depths of their faith. I'll never forget when that 2010 earthquake hit, one of the first images I saw were people worshiping in the middle of the wreckage. These are people who have undying faith. And we have to trust that they actually know what is best for their country, best for their lives, without us believing that we are the messiahs of the world.
What's a real complexity about all of that is the Christian faith is what we were taught by Massa. And they taught us that we were demons and that they freed us from our demonic, heathenistic influences of Africa, and we should be grateful to them for bringing us over as slaves. They, even as I'm old, you might, some of you, I thought, well, Bishop, you may be old enough to remember. I used to go and say, Mama, Jingle called me black. Monica said I got beady head. You know, we were ashamed of who we were. And we thought we let the white church, the European church, demonize Haitians to be demon worshipers. They're very mystically spiritual. I know there's Catholicism and sanctity and things like that, but there's a lot of spiritual people, as you alluded to, but in our minds, as the Black church in America, we too sent a few missionaries over there, a few dollars over there. More white ministries have gone over there actually than Black ministries, because we're still busy trying to gain our civilized freedom in this country after 400 years, trying to get a Cadillac, but in those days. But we need to, as the Black church in America, if there's such a thing, and there is, we need to reconsider what we believe about ourselves. And we need to reconsider what our oppressors taught us, even about Jesus, because they have been very condescending, and it's made us condescending of Africans. White missionaries have gone to Africa more than Black, or Haiti more than Black, or even India. So the Black church has not been that mission oriented. We've been busy trying to secure our liberty, ultimate freedom over here in this country. So that we've had a lot of conflicts that are distractions, and they want to keep us distracted. But we have to stop thinking that Haitians are all demon worshipers and that the earthquakes occurred over there and bad things happen because they worship demons. I actually thought that. I've sent thousands to Haiti. I supported missions there for years. Our church did. I've been there myself. I was shocked when I first went to find all these buses with Catholic Christian symbols on them. The crucifix, Mary. I mean, all over and inside, all kind of iconic symbolisms of various superstitions, but Christianity is one of their superstitions. And I said, I didn't see anything indicating demons or even devils or satanic worship. I saw all Christian emphasis. So the world didn't know that about Haiti. So we need to stand back a minute and look at how we've been taught to think about ourselves, because we're just a few generations from those original thoughts. They taught us to read the King James Version of the scripture. That's how the early slaves learned how to speak English. So we're still sorting through all of that. Now we have another generation who doesn't even remember Martin Luther King. They don't remember the civil rights movement. They know nothing about Jim Crow. They got Jordache tennis shoes on, and they got cell phones and expensive jeans, and they're wearing their hair back with the African, our native African culture, but they don't know what that means. It's like a tattoo. So we need to re-educate. You cannot learn without unlearning. We have a lot of unlearning to do as a church. We have a lot of unlearning to do as a country and as a culture. And so we're talking about symptoms, but the source is stinking thinking.
Thank you, Bishop. I'm going to let Bishop Flunder go. But before Bishop Flunder goes, I made a post early on when Haiti had the earthquake. It was like back in August or July, whenever it happened. And in that post, I said, we need to help our people. And somebody inboxed me and said, I did not know you were Haitian. I said, I'm not Haitian,
Wow.
but
Wow.
they are still
Our
our people.
people.
They still are our brothers, our sisters, our siblings. They still belong to us. And so this was just to say something about what Dr. Willie was saying in terms of stop thinking of people over there, because it's not just them over there. They are our people over there. It's
They're
our
us.
people. It's our brothers and sisters. It's our family over there that are in dire straits, that need help. They are our children
Yeah.
that they're carrying. This is somebody else bore that child, but they are our children. They belong to us. Haiti belongs to us. And I wanted to say that. Bishop Flunder?
You know, I think of it this way. It depends on where the boat landed. What happened in the Caribbean, what happened in the United States, what happened in Canada, what happened in Europe. It depended on where the boat landed. And because we brought African indigenous faith and connected it to what we were taught, where the boat landed, let's put it that way. And so when you have a really good voodoo ceremony or a really good Santeria ceremony, and you put it on your television, turn the volume down, and then put a real good Pentecostal ceremony.
You're right.
Real good one. They dance the same way, same beat, same jump, same hop. Fall out under the power, roll on the floor, speak in tongues, have to be taken out in the spirit and put in the car because you can't walk, because the Black Pentecostalism is rooted in African indigenous faith. And so is Methodist Baptism. It's all rooted for us. We took the oppressive teachings of the text and found another way to look at it, which in some cases we just tore the pages out almost completely and kept what we needed and put some African on it and turned it into large, mega faith-based organizations. I think that is a very powerful reality, frankly, for African people to rearrange the religion of the slavehold. Yeah. That's incredible to me. And get out in the brush harbor and just dance all night, talking to the God that you claim and hold on to and believe literally is on your side. Is on your side. That takes an enormous amount of strength. So this is what I would say, that I made a note to myself that we need to stop being missionaries. I heard what you said. And stop with the superiority of the missionaries concept, that I have something to bring you that you don't have. Mm-hmm. And go to the people that we are going to be with and say, teach me what I've forgotten. That's a completely different concept. Teach me what I have forgotten. Please help me get back what was stolen from me. The colonial pursuits of the Catholic Church. The colonial pursuits of the Catholic Church was to connect you to a God that already sees you as substandard, and to turn you, and I don't care whether it was Black people or Native Americans here in the United States, or the people that were consumed by Spanish Catholicism and created a whole new race. We didn't even have Mexicans. We had Indians or Native Americans. They got Spanishized and it created Mexicans. That's the reality. And most of them were in the missions along the western seaboard of the United States. And they said, well, we have our land now. I said, we stole the land. We stole. New Mexico was old Mexico. Arizona belonged to the people. We stole the people and we stole the land. That is the story of the United States. Why am I saying this? Because we have an opportunity to take back what was taken from us and not to have to Christianize it such that we lose the fact that up underneath all of this conversation of Christianity is an African root with a Christian patina. There's a distinct difference between the two. I shout and dance because I'm an African. I clap on the 2 and the 4. Let's be real clear. I clap on the 2 and the 4. The first clap belongs to God. The second one is mine. All right. That's the way. And I don't do that simply because I am a disciple and a follower of Jesus of Nazareth. I do that because I'm an African. That is my African indigenous reality. And then I'll close this with this. Learning to love and respect our history is hard work. And people are now trying to take through this critical race theory foolishness and concern about critical race theory being in some way taught in our schools. The anti-critical race movement is trying to take from us the real story of what happened to us. We should just as strongly simultaneously be insistent upon taking back our story. There is a reason I dance like I do. There is a reason why the drum is our principal instrument. There is a reason why I clap on the 2 and the 4. There is a reason why I see God as spirit. And the reason why we have dances like they did on the movie Beloved out in the brush somewhere until we call down the presence of God and we allow the presence of God to take our whole bodies. We don't, you can roll me around. You can do whatever you want to do. I don't, just come on and lift me out of this intellectualized, useless concept of the divine and touch me in the part of me that is spirit. If we lose that, if we give that away, trying to missionize people who still carry that in their souls and in their DNA, then our oppressors will have won. They will have won. I won't mind. I want to get with you as soon as I can, Bishop Pearson, and tear up the whole floor, just like we have in times past, because it's time to do it. If we could just get this Rona under control, it is time to remember the dance.
Thank you, Bishop Flunder. I wanted to say something because I read an article that Bishop Flunder sent me, was in Sojourners, and it's from 2010. And actually, Reverend Dr. O'Berry Hendricks is the writer of this particular article, and he's talking about Haiti and Christianity. Mike Christian makes a good point here, who's viewing us through Facebook. He says Christian churches in Haiti were preaching and accusing the voodoo religion in Haiti for being the reason for Haiti's problems. And because the voodoo religion also supported the liberation of the gay community in Haiti. It is the exact same thing that Reverend Dr. O'Berry Hendricks said in that writing in Sojourners. And so Christianity, we have a lot to do with the problems and the issues at the root that has happened in Haiti. And so we said earlier that Haiti, the United States owes Haiti something. I said it, Willie Dwayne Francois said it, we've all said it. Dr. Francois, tell us what it is that you believe the United States can do.
Yeah, so I think one, that there really needs to be a check. That's really, we need serious resources that go back to Haiti as a form of reparations, honoring the fact that we underdeveloped a nation before it ever got started. 60 years of denying it nationhood, right, on the global stage. 60 years of exacting sanctions against it. So many years of holding them in economic bondage because of the money that we loaned them so that they could pay reparations back to France, right? We owe the money for the island that had the bird droppings on it that America used to enrich its own agricultural life. We owe this nation trillions of dollars. And we have to be honest about that because by divesting from them, it led to our expansion, our economic expansion. So this is not just money that we're creating out of nowhere. This is money that has been earned and developed in the States over these years as a result of our foreign policy with Haiti. So we have to have a robust conversation around what amount we'll send to Haiti. I know President Obama said in 2011 that, we should give Haiti $200 million. That's still not enough to speak to the ways that we have exploited and extracted from that land. What we can do immediately, I think, and this is not a direct impact on Haiti itself, but in terms of us being a place, I think people who love God, and whether you're Muslim, whether you're a Christian, whatever your faith tradition, even if it's not one of the major faith traditions, is that how do we begin to see life without borders, or see those borders as imaginary? When I went to the Tijuana, San Diego border, it's an imaginary line that was drawn, arbitrarily drawn, because as was said, by strategic oppressors, right? At some point, we have to say these boundaries are not real, and for all of the wealth that we have in this nation that has been stored up because of our wickedness, right? We've stored up wealth in this country because of our wickedness. We owe that to the places that we have underinvested, which means that at some point we have to stop acting like borders are as real as we say they are, which means President Biden said that on the campaign trail, he said that he was going to reinstate a program that would offer asylum to people who are trying to escape poverty and trying to escape persecution. If those are not the Haitian brothers and sisters that we're flying back to Haiti right now, I don't know who is. He owes us, his black voters. He owes us. He owes the Constitution. He owes himself. As a practicing Catholic, a man of God, he owes himself to honor his word, and he can start doing that right now. The third thing I would say is America actually needs to stay out of Haitian politics. It was because of Papa Doc and Baby Doc that these are dictators that were backed by the United States, set up by the United States, that actually helped to undo Haiti even more. When Haiti did elect its own popular elected officials like a president, those are the ones America took out. We actually should probably think about how to drop money in Haiti and stay out of their politics and stay out of the implementation and honor our own commitments around how we want to treat migrants and how we want to treat the most vulnerable around the world. And if Congress can't do that, it's another example of how morally bereft and how incompetent those mostly white men we send to Washington actually are.
Listen, thank you. I know you told me you have to leave at 9 because you have another obligation. I want you to know that.
We ain't letting you go. Stay right there. Boy.
Exactly.
I may be able to fudge a few more minutes.
Please.
Yes. Call them and tell them you can't come.
Tell them you're on your way to Haiti instead.
I just sent the text. Just sent the text.
Yes, right. Just tell me you can't make it. All right.
Let me add this quick point.
Yes, please.
And Dr. Francois, you can say something about it. I'm really frustrated with the fact that Americans are spending billions of dollars for a few minutes in the sky. And while all this is happening, Africa is the first world. We call it third world, Asia, India. They're really the first world, but the language is always condescending. I won't go into all of that. There's a lot of money. What can America do? Spend. We have the money to do it. Just think of if just the athletes and the major Black denominations, the Tylers and the Oprahs and some of that, put their money together, we could have gone down there and done something for those 16,000 immigrants ourselves. The government's not going to do it. We could have been down there. We'll hear Vice President's going to be on The View on Friday, but we didn't do much. We didn't say much. I didn't hear anybody screaming out about it. I wrote some things, maybe you all did. I posted some things, but our biggest moneyed people, the Robert Johnsons, the billionaires, The people that run BET, of course, that's owned by CBS and Simon & Schuster and our Jewish brothers. But we have the money. We could have stopped what just happened. The money it costs to put planes and send them back to nothing, we could have used to put them in apartments or tents, anything, fed them, get them into these cities like they're bringing Afghans into the cities, and
Absolutely.
churches are taking them on.
Yeah.
This is a sign of our negligence, a little bit of ignorance. We got to, as people of color in this country, we're in the more powerful position than we've ever been in our history. We can do more about our own issues. If we keep waiting on the white man or even the government to do it, we'll be waiting forever. We now have billionaires. We now have corporate executives. We now have mega churches with mega funds, lots of dollars, lots of people. We got doctors and lawyers and school teachers and corporate owners and business owners. We have to pull together ourselves. And I'm calling on our huge leaders, you wealthy Black people. You let this slip away from you. What's good? Well, let's hire some jets and go and get those people. Let's go over to Haiti ourselves. If I was a denominational leader, I'd be saying the same thing. And I'm going to get on the horn and start saying, guys, we got to do something. These people have nothing. Let's don't wait for the white man to do it. And many white people will support us if we do put forth some effort. But as long as we let race-based mindsets control what happens or doesn't happen to our people, we're dead in the water. We got to do more ourselves. I'm talking to a billionaire tomorrow about this. And 2 billionaires. We got to get going. We have to do something, and we will.
And we will. And really quickly, I know you're coming back to us, Reverend Francois. I just want to say, we have the money. California just spent $200 million to try to recall their governor, and they lost.
Wait.
$200 million to recall the governor, and it didn't happen.
That was stupid.
We have the money, Dr. Francois.
Right. And we're going to have to spend that amount of money again when he runs for re-election next year. Right.
Yeah.
But I think Bishop Pearson just triggered something for me. Like, even when we think about the Afghans that we're bringing in, it helps us understand this is really there's a class dynamic here too, because we're not flying in the most vulnerable Afghans, and I understand that Afghanistan right now is not a safe place for anyone right now. I get that because of the way the Taliban functions, but the ones that the Afghans that we're letting in, these are the ones who have helped us, who have some levels of upward mobility. These are people with high levels of skills in technology and diplomacy. So even as we are letting Afghans into this country, we're only letting those in that we can continue to exploit. And so again, it's saying that this country has a problem with poor non-white people. And yes, this country has a problem with non-white people, Black people primarily, but it has a serious problem with poor non-white people. The prison industrial complex is not built on middle-class Black folk. It is built on poor Black folk, and that is by design. Over-policing is not happening in my suburb where I have Black neighbors. It's happening in the city where I pastor, where there's only Black and brown folk who are living, 60% of them are living under the poverty line. The race and class are always at work, and it's also at work in this situation as well, in the way we think about immigration.
Let me add just one thing. That 523, I think it is, folks that were put on planes and sent out. I think that is the number. I want you to also know that far more than the 523 crossed the border. There were people who did come and did get through. And there's nothing really in place for them either. And that number is going to be vilified right away as taking food out of the mouths of U.S. children. They'll be vilified for suggesting that they are going to do violence in the neighborhoods right away because they're Black and because they crossed the border. What I don't see, I see how problematic the 523 that were put on planes and sent back. But what I'm having trouble understanding is what is the plan, because I'm not hearing anything about the ones who did get through, because there were quite a few. And while we're talking, they are still finding ways. These are very bright brothers and sisters who know how to survive. And they're catching a hold of anything they can catch a hold to. I've seen this kind of coming across. I'm from California. I'm born in California. And I have seen people build great big old walls, and folks just get a great big old ladder and go over the top and go on the other side, or they dig a great big old hole. You know, we have passages underneath every wall that Trump and everybody else built. That's why it's just such a stupid exercise in futility. Folks just dig under the wall and come on in. And it happens constantly. Live 20 or 30 in a house together until they can figure out what to do next. So folks did get in, no matter what kind of big cars. Abbott, how stupid is that? Abbott brought a bunch of cars. He brought a bunch of cars and made a line of cars. The people went down to the end of the line on both ends and came on in. What I'm trying to say is that you're not going to stop an onslaught of people in the night from finding their way into town some kind of way and trying to figure out a way to live. More of them remain than would, but there is nothing built around those that got in. We're not processing them. We didn't send any welcome, not of any kind. And that's, to me, the greatest travesty. Nothing to process them, which means they're fair game in those southern states. Do you understand? People will shoot them and jump on them. And if any of them are young or children get separated from their families, it's open season on them. We did not welcome them. And they are here, and they are not welcomed. That's even more dangerous, almost, tell you the truth, than being flown back. You're a non-entity. You are a non-person in the United States.
Thank you, Bishop.
I remember when we went to when we were in Tijuana, and those were some of the moments where I witnessed the most abundant humanity. Just spending a few hours with folk who were escaping the dangers back home, escaping the cartel, escaping political corruption. Talking about the Latin American and Central American migrants of 2019, and there were mothers there, and just with my very limited Spanish was able to, I was able to have conversation with them. I remember one saying, just take my child with you when you go back. Right, that is the kind of desperation that these mothers, that these siblings, that these parents are living under. That they are actually willing to trust their children to clergy who are still strangers, but to say, I can't take my children. If I have to go back, I would like my child not to go back. Right, not knowing what will happen to them in America. I have a different understanding of America than they have. So I know that them coming in, with just us and being released to the system is not a good eventuality for them. But the reality is that them actually being trapped in the American system is actually almost better than the guaranteed death that they will experience at home. And it took me a while to come to those terms. But these parents, they intuit that. They know that for my child to be in the American system, at least they're in America and they'll be safe, away from that type of violence that we know, away from that type of poverty that we know. And I bring that up just to name the desperation that so many of these migrant brothers and sisters are living with. But even with their desperation, the peacefulness that they bring to this. Those 2 days that I spent in Tijuana, I saw no issues of violence, no outbreaks of crime. These were just people who are reaching for life. And the way we stigmatize because of our own xenophobia is that we name them as criminal, we name them as violent, we name them as deviant, when the reality is that some of the greatest amount of humanity I've ever laid eyes on, some of the greatest divinity I've laid eyes on, were in migrant mothers, just hoping that their child could cross the border. And I had no choice but to think about what went through Mary's mind because I went in December. What went through Mary's mind when she and Joseph took Jesus as a refugee into Egypt, right? And if Christians aren't able to make those connections, I don't know what our Christianity is worth.
I spent the first 11 years of my life in 5 miles north of the Tijuana border. Most of my friends outside of the Black community were Mexicans. We went over there many, many times. My uncles married Mexican women or had babies by them. I have a lot of cousins who were biracial. I understand the culture. And one thing I noticed, even as a kid, when I crossed the border, because right across the border, you can see a mansion right next to a hut. But we never were in the mansions. We went to the huts and to the hurting and the hungry and the hopeful people and did missionary work. But there is a survival instinct in the human spirit, particularly of people who are oppressed, that is almost spiritual. It is supernatural. When you look at the faces of the Haitians in those living conditions, they kept the calm. Yes, you could see the terror, but you didn't see the vicious, vengeful anger. Their survival instincts arose in them and are arising in them as they have in Haiti all these years, and including these times of the earthquake devastations. They have a supernatural ability to survive. So do we as people from the continent of Africa who have somehow survived. Even the Middle Passageway, laying side by side other nearly naked bodies who were regurgitating, defecating, urinating, women on their cycle, people sick and headachy and dying of smallpox and malaria and the various fevers, and several million of them dumped into the Atlantic Ocean. How they survived that and lasted, came over, and then the worst slavery and incarceration they've ever experienced, beating and humiliation and rape, male and female. Those people look at us and say, who the hell are these folks? Why aren't they dead? How have they lasted? And we haven't even broke out in riots. We've had demonstrations that became riotous because of those who opposed the demonstration. We're a very calm, cool, collected people, and we are anointed to survive. That's what Europeans don't process accurately. They're watching us do it again. These are dignified people who can handle indignity with dignity. They can handle doom with class and grace, and they trust God, and they innately trust Americans. They know somehow some of us are going to find them and help them, whether that's Catholic priests, Catholic charities, the Red Cross, or churches, other churches, or just kind people, many of whom are white. So there's some good in all of this, and you brought it out, Dr. Francois. We are about to see we're seeing the best and worst of the human entity and the species, and the best will win ultimately, because we've let the best of the African spirit remains in America. We survive. All of us are survivalists. Our grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents. That's the soothing ministerial part of all of this. That gives me a sense of hope. Thank God for the power of the human spirit and the Holy Spirit to keep us alive and alert and aware. And we're now becoming congressmen and senators and governors and presidents. I mean, in all of this, we still have doctors and lawyers. And I was noticing today, and this is important for all of us and all of our listeners to realize, there are African-American commentators and experts talking about everything on television. And they are our voice and our choice, and they're brilliant and aware and sensitive all over the media. White folks notice that more than we do, or as much as we do. The racists do. They can't hardly stand this brilliant, bright. All of you have doctorates. You're smart people, and we have so many, or well-educated at least. We have so much going for us. That's why I keep saying our best is yet to come, because look what we've already survived. We'll get past this. We'll get through it, even if we never get over it.
Yes. So Cynthia Rose says this is a complicated and complex situation. What about African Americans, homeless, unemployed, and those lacking resources? What about other countries providing help to Haitians and others? And so, Bishop Flunder.
I was waiting for somebody to say that, because I knew that somebody would say, we already have our poor and our sick and our, and it is true. And some of the same dynamics that created this for the Haitians created the same dynamics for us. But I think that there's a prevailing statement that has been made here tonight. One is that we are worth more than what has been basically given to us as crumbs, on the floor under the table. But we also have the strength to do more, to be more. And one of the ways that one of the things we have to disabuse ourselves of right away is that if we keep complaining, somebody's going to do something. That is not going to make it happen. Not even if the complaining is the truth. And we have to be mindful that our struggle does not make us turn inward and in some way destroy ourselves by saying that, there's too many of us in need. We can't take on someone else in need. I think we need to be able to do it kind of like our foreparents did. And you had a 2-bedroom house, but then your people came up from the South. How am I doing with that? And they were in the diaspora and they had to do something. So you started out, you had, something for 4 people, then 8 people lived there, and you slept under the kitchen table and in the cabinet, and, one on the foot of the bed, one on the head of the bed, and I've seen the same thing with Muslim families, where one person comes over here and they buy a house, they bring 5 people, then there's 12 people, and then there's 13 people, and they all work for a business that they started, and then they buy 2 houses, and they buy 10 houses, and they buy 20 houses until everybody has a house. If we can remember that, if our DNA can remember that, and we are not separated such that, as Bishop Pearson said earlier, such that all our money is going to a new pair of tennis shoes. If we can remember that is in our tribal DNA, we will make room. We will make room and struggle for our own freedom at the same time. It's like a new child being born in the family. It disrupts everything. And a new baby has bigger junk than any of the big kids, because new babies, all that stuff is big. Big bassinet, big swing, big old hamper. Just littlest thing in the house. Got to have a car seat in the car, and everybody got to bunch up trying to make room. This big because they're new. Then pretty soon they can catch on, grow up enough to start taking on some responsibility. But we made room. We have to be able to make room and make space, even though we are still fighting for our own rights. Yeah.
Dr. Francois, I'm going to let you have your last word, because I know you have to go, and you can also comment on this as well.
Good. So thanks. I agree with Bishop. I love Bishop Flunder, the way she that analogy. I think it's just a wonderful way of thinking about this. I do agree that America owes its disinherited a great debt as well, and I believe that the wealthiest country in the history of the world should be able to do both. Should be able to repair the harm that it has done to its own people and in terms of national identity. We are Americans, in spite of our double consciousness and in spite of how they treat us. We are Americans, right? I don't know another country. And so I think that America has to be able to do both. It has to be able to repair us, to make us whole in terms of what it has taken from us, but it has to also be able to repair the harms that it has done abroad. This conversation is not about America coming in and saving Haiti. That's not possible. It's not America's job. We're not the saviors of the world. I think that's part of our complexities that allow us to get in the way. But what we're saying is that America must repair what it has messed up, what it has exploited, what it has extracted. And all the other nations that have done it to Haiti must do the same, particularly France. And so it is not this, we have to see this as not a call for the United States to do everything, but it's a call for the United States to undo what it has done and start that process of repair in terms of what it has done. We're not asking America to go handle some issue it had nothing to do with. We're asking America to handle an issue it helped create. You know, 1804, it enslaved the Haitian government economically to its banks. We got to pay for that. I say it again, that island that we stole that has made us billions of dollars, 260 billions of dollars, according to some economists. We have to pay for that. So this is America atoning for its sins in Haiti, right? So American Christians, let's stop talking about the sins of Haiti and its devil worship, whatever that means to us. And let's start talking about the sins America has committed in Haiti that it must atone for.
I'll joy to have you this evening, Dr. Francois.
My joy to be here. Thank you so much, Bishop-elect.
Indeed.
Bishop Flunder, I've always loved you. Bishop Pearson, always loved you. This has been a great day for me.
Bless you, man.
You make us proud, sir. Thank you. You make us proud. Wow.
Bishop Pearson, last words. Bishop Flunder, last words.
I'm going to tag on a little bit to what Dr. Francois said, that America, there's an element in America, a strong, wealthy, well-connected, well-established element of this country that does not want to repent or repair. They want to repeat. That's what MAGA, Make America Great Again, basically means make America hate again. And unfortunately, most of that spirit comes from European Anglo evangelical Christians. Obviously, you know that's a big pet peeve for me. The church said, enslave them and save them, and God will bless you. And in their minds, God has blessed America to bring us over here. And with this whole "In God We Trust" motto, legal motto, and anthem, they really feel like the Lord has honored their hatred and purified and sanctified it by saving Africans, heathens, voodoo worshipers in their minds. Now, the reason I can say that is because I was taught that as a kid, and I wondered myself. So we have to rethink. That's what repent means. We have to change the language, study the words, because words are powerful and inventive and creative, and they're dictating. Again, that's diction, addiction. These people are addicted to the words and the language they've heard for 400 years, at least. And so until we change the language, I like to say there's a lot of truth decay going on, and there's some spiritual halitosis. And these masks are making us smell our own breath. Now we know why everybody was offering us gum and mints, and we didn't know our breath stank this bad till these masks made us say, "Wait a minute, was that me?" So America's being forced. This is America's last chance to brush your teeth and to brush your truth and to change. We're gonna all be ending up with dentures as a country, and you're gonna hear them clapping like my aunts used to. We need some changes, and I laugh to keep from crying. So I'm saying to America, and I'm saying to me as an African American, I'm rethinking a lot of what I've been told and what I've taught, and what I base my values, worldviews on. A lot of it's from what massa has taught us, and massa has been crooked in their thinking, and it's not their fault. It's traded down over the centuries, and it's crippled their consciousness for them to allow the types of horrendous crimes against humanity that they have sponsored on this planet for several hundred years. I think a change is coming, but it's going to get violent before it's done. We could have said yes. If we don't humble ourselves as a nation, we will be humiliated. And that's what's beginning to happen right now.
I think that there are very wealthy people in this nation that could balance the atrocities. You can't dismiss them.
Right.
But they could balance them. That part is true. The problem is they don't want to feel it. I don't think that people have any real problem giving something away as long as it's not painful. So if I have $100 million and I give you 25,000, I'm not feeling it. But if I have $100 million and basically you're asking for 25 million of the 100 million that I have, I'm having a problem with that, because that's too much of my money that you're taking from me. And so philanthropy in this country and the whole idea of reformations in this country is looking for a cheap way out. And what I keep saying to people, you haven't repented until you feel something. You have to stop, you have to turn around, and you have to do what were your first works, do them over. Do what needs to be done to fix it. Repentance carries with it a cost. Reparations does not mean patting me on the head. Reparations, if we're going to do them for real in this nation, then those that participate in reparations will have to feel it. They'll have to feel it. And that is the real pushback. If you want to know what it is, folks don't mind giving you a little gift, giving you a little something that'll get you to get in the corner and stop fussing and raising so much hell. They'll give you a little gift. Some of the wickedest families in the United States are the heads of the largest philanthropies in the United States. They have multiple generations of wealth. And I can promise you, they are, most of them, not peeling off enough to be harmed or hurt when they give something. When they get through giving, they are still going to be unbelievably wealthy. And their money grows, and what they give, they get a tax advantage for it. So why am I saying that? The reason it is very hard for this to happen, to really be able to do what actually involves reparations for those that have had their wealth stolen, is because to really do it and do it authentically, those that have used the people's bodies and the people's money all of these years will have to feel the loss. It will have to level the playing field in some way. That will always be the problem. And someone else in our questions asked the question, how can the Black church build strategic relationships with the Black churches in Haiti and in the diaspora? And it was beautifully talked about. We have to connect our justice issues with their justice issues. And it doesn't work if we spend a lot of time saying my sore is bigger than your sore. My pain is greater than your pain. I lost more than you lost. We all lost. And we lost from the common evil that took from all of us. And not only do we have to get together, those who lost, but the children of the people who stole us and stole our money also need to partner with us. And there is going to be loss, because that's the only way we repair. And Bishop Pearson is right. There's going to be a whole lot of destruction before folks can get to that. But we could have saved Haiti with the 2 missions that went to space. Just those 2 missions could have paid the price to do an enormous amount of reformation and restoration in Haiti. Are you ready, my friends who are hearing us tonight, to talk to your colleagues about paying the price? There is a price. If we don't give it, then it will be taken anyway. There is a price. The earth will demand it back. Our societies will demand it back. There will be a crumbling of what we thought could never end. If we don't do it ourselves, it'll be done for us. That is the part that I really need people to hear tonight. So God bless you is my prayer.
Thank you so much, Bishops Pearson and Flunder. This has been a robust conversation on tonight. Also, thank you to Dr. Willie Dwayne Francois III, who joined us tonight for this conversation. We know that there were many questions that people have that we were not able to get to but probably we will probably come back to this conversation at another time. I know that we will. So we want to thank you all tonight for being with us, and we want to go to some commercials really quickly for you. Bishop Flunder.
God bless all of you. Thank you so much, Bishop Pearson. And you're going to be hearing a lot more from us in so many ways. Stay close to what Bishop Pearson will be offering and talking about in a few days about expanding our reach. We didn't get into this for just a fly-by-night experience. We are here to change time. We are called by God to be reformers, and it's reformation time. And I want to encourage you, those of you who support our broadcasts, to continue to do that. Do a little bit more or a whole lot more than what you have done in the recent past. And you can donate, you can give to the Beyond the Gatekeepers broadcast and our upcoming efforts by Cash App to $TFAM annual, or you can give by PayPal, www.paypal.me/TFAMjustice. You all see us every week. You know how to do it. I'm encouraging you to do more than know how to do it. I'm encouraging you to do it. Be a part of what we are about to be in the world and what we are about to shift and change with this broadcast. God bless you is my prayer.
Thank you, Bishop Flunder, so much. And really quickly, someone asked a question with regards to who's raising funds for Haiti. Just want to let you all know, I think it's Shell Lee, that TFAM Justice is raising funds for Haiti. That's been out for quite some time now. So thank you all so much. We want to go to the other commercials so that you all can see what else we have.
Hello everyone, this is Jess Dominic, owner of Bullet in Flight Radio, your story, our station, a proud supporter of progressive Christians from around the world. So please join us every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. until 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the best in gospel house, gospel indie, and inspirational word. And if you're looking to submit your music or sermons, please send us an MP3 and artist pick to bulletinflightpros@gmail.com. All submissions are free. Thank you for tuning in, and God bless.
So happy for Bullet in Flight Radio. God bless them for wanting to advertise with us. We have Sky Michelle tees and things. Please go to www.skymichelle.com. She can customize t-shirts for you. She is the kid boss. You can follow her on Facebook and Instagram at I am Sky Michelle. She has a collection of t-shirts as well that you can purchase. Dope Black, Faith, YA Flunder quotes, Kara motivational quotes. Want you to support this business of this 8-year-old entrepreneur. Also, Nubian Flunder, she's the LAC, the founder of the Healing Place Apothecary, and she is the daughter of our presiding bishop. You can go to www.THP, which stands for the Healing Place Apothecary.com, to learn more about her products and to make a purchase. You can go to Kara Solutions. Focus on your passion. Let Kara handle the rest. It is owned and operated by Susan A. Webley. She is the founder. She does remote production and video conferencing, admin, tech support, custom branding, show development, training on Zoom, StreamYard, Restream, and more. If you need a free consultation, please email her at sue@kara-solutions.com. You can advertise with Beyond the Gatekeepers by just emailing us at beyondthegatekeepersshow@gmail.com. That's beyondthegatekeepersshow@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us. Please support our broadcast by sending a donation. As Bishop Flunder said, we're so gracious, and grateful for what you are going to give. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.